Across the tropics, things continue to get interesting, as Invest 92L is expected to impact the Lesser Antilles tonight going into tomorrow. Invest 94L is right behind it, still doing its best to get its act together, but time is slowly starting to run out. But time is absolutely not running out for Tropical Storm Lala, as it's expected to start impacting Hawaii in the next couple of days. Hurricane warnings are now in effect for the Big Island, and tropical storm warnings are in effect for several of the other islands as well. In this video, we're going to be going over all of these tropical hazards and the potential risks that pan out with them. Alright, here's what we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have our two areas of interest, Invest 92L and Invest 94L in the Atlantic, as well as Tropical Storm Lala in Hawaii. We're going to be spending more time talking about Lala today than we did yesterday because there is a hurricane warning in effect over there and tropical storm warnings in effect for a lot of areas in Hawaii. So we're going to be spending more time doing that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive right into this. So here is the NHCs of what we got for you guys going on the Atlantic. We're going to read these out briefly, and then we're going to switch over to Lala for you guys. This is Invest 92L. Yesterday, this had an 80% chance of development in the morning. It is now dropped down to a 10% chance of formation in the last 30 hours or so. So we're going to go ahead and read this out and see how things are going to progress. A tropical wave located about 350 miles east of the Windward Islands is producing gusty wind and a large area of showers and thunderstorms. This system is moving into a region of increasing upper-level winds and dry air, and the potential of development continues to decrease. Even though development is highly unlikely, strong gusty winds and areas of heavy rain are possible across portions of the Lesser Antilles tonight and on Saturday. 48 hours, 10% chance, 7 days, 10% chance, was at 80 yesterday. It's been running into some shear. There had been some dry air entrainment going through it right there, so that's definitely something we're going to want to watch out for, especially if you're tuning in from the Antilles and you're going to start seeing some impacts from this. But overall, it looks to me that our chance for tropical development with this system has pretty much closed off, although some impacts are still expected with this. Looking at Invest 94L, things definitely are interesting with this system right here as well. A tropical wave located over the central tropical Atlantic, more than 1,000 miles west of the Cabo Verde Islands, continues to produce disorganized showers and thunderstorms. While environmental conditions are conducive for some development over the next few days, the system could encounter strong upper-level winds next week, decreasing its chances for development. 30% chance in the next 48 hours, 40% in the next 7 days. So this system 94L still has some more time to get its act together, but the time with that is definitely starting to close up a little bit. I know there's some dry air that's been in training in that over the last day or so. We're going to want to watch and see how this will respond to that and see how the situation will progress. But we also have Tropical Storm Lala, which in the course of the last 24 hours has definitely gotten a lot more interesting. It is now a strong tropical storm, and it is expected to impact Hawaii as a hurricane now. So with that, we're going to go ahead and shift over to the system. And for this is Tropical Storm Lala for you guys right here. It's slowly becoming better organized. It is now a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm, minimum central pressure of 997 millibars. Conditions expected to deteriorate on the Big Island of Hawaii beginning early Saturday. So that's going to be something we're going to want to watch out for. A hurricane warning is in effect for Hawaii County. Tropical storm warnings are in effect for Maui. A tropical storm watch is in effect for Oahu and Kauai County, including the islands of Kauai and Niihau over there further west in the island. So that means things are definitely starting to ramp up over here in the Hawaiian Islands. These are areas that are not particularly used to tropical cyclones, mind you, and this makes it that much more prone to this system. Let's go ahead and read over the discussion just a little bit and kind of see what's going to be going on. Lala is moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour. It's expected to persist over the next few days. This motion should take the core of Lala very near or over the Big Island on Saturday. While Lala is near the Big Island, short-term deviations on the track are also likely due to the local terrain interactions, as depicted in many of the models. After Lala passes the Big Island, a continued west-northwestward track south of the remainder of the islands is expected Saturday night and Sunday. The NHC track forecast is mostly unchanged from the previous one and is based on a blend of the latest Google DeepMind, HCCA, and TVCA aids, which have been performing quite well with this storm. Steady strengthening is expected over the next day or so. Lala is forecast to become a Category 1 hurricane when it reaches the Big Island. Land interaction and an increase in wind shear should result in Lala weakening back to tropical storm strength as it moves south of the island chain. Re-strengthening is forecast early next week as vertical shear relaxes and Lala remains over warm sea surface temperatures. The latest NHC forecast intensity is similar to the previous one and remains on the upper level of the guidance envelope. And this is what we have for you guys right here. Expected to be a hurricane in the next 24 hours as it's approaching Hawaii. Expected to get down to strong tropical storm strength and then re-strengthen to hurricane strength as it moves past the Big Islands into warmer waters and lower wind shear as well. So definitely something we're going to want to watch. Here is the cone for you guys. And for that, here is what we got going on. Expected to be a hurricane by tomorrow morning, Hawaiian time. Over here, that's going to be tomorrow afternoon in the central United States where I am based at. Hurricane warning in effect for the Big Island, tropical storm warning in effect for the islands behind that, and tropical storm watches in effect for Oahu and Kauai. So that's what's going to be going on. Strong tropical storm strength is expected as it's moving through there in those regions as well. Re-strengthening to hurricane by the time we get to Tuesday and Wednesday in that part of the world over here. So it's definitely something we're going to want to watch out for. Hawaii is not typically built for this kind of system. They're built more for volcanoes and the high winds that they get from the Central Pacific ridge over there compared to what they get with a tropical cyclone. And one thing that I want to emphasize with this is that the terrain in the Hawaiian Islands is very mountainous, and that can really enhance your wind gusts. So 75 miles per hour at surface level, at sea level, it could be potentially up to 90 miles per hour gusts, or even stronger than that in the higher elevations. So that's going to be something that we're going to want to watch out for, especially on the Big Island of Hawaii and in the recent island chain in this area as well. So that's what we're looking at for so that's what we're looking at for Lala right here according to the NHC. We're going to pull up some satellite data to kind of give you an idea of what's going on over there. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Let's go ahead and do that. Here we got this right here. You have the system continuing to organize, get its act together, still producing a lot of convection. The last frame is not here yet according to Tropical Tidbits, so I do apologize for that, but you can get a general idea of what's going on. Matter of fact, I want to see if I can get this up on Dapia just to see what we can get with this. There we go. This is perfect right here. We can give you an idea of what's going on with this and a much better light. Seizure warning to those prone to flashing lights as well. I do want to keep that in mind. I do want you guys to kind of understand that this has been a very flashy situation right here. I do apologize for that, but once that is done, we can give you a better analysis of what's going on. So you're seeing more convection continuing to pump out, continuing to produce. You're seeing pretty significant outflow pumping out over here in this part of the world, in this part of the storm as it's approaching the Big Island. So yeah, getting more organized. You're seeing a lot more convection developing near the center of circulation. There is a little bit of wind shear that might start hindering it as it approaches Hawaii, but where it's at right now, it's actually in a pretty good area for a trough angle that could potentially enhance the outflow and allow for more organization and development to go on. So definitely something to watch out for and take rather seriously if you're in the islands of Hawaii. So that's what we're paying attention to in terms of Lala. Let's go ahead and show you the track models and the intensity. And he got this pulled up for you guys right here. This is the 12Z track model guidance that we have as of right now. Majority of the models either make a very close landfall or a very close pass to the Hawaiian Islands. The HAVS A and I believe the HMON want this to move right over the middle smack of the Big Island, which if that were the case, it would lead to more significant impacts for the rest of the Hawaiian Islands before moving out to sea. If that scenario does play out, then the conditions are going to get worse. I wouldn't be surprised if we see hurricane watches or hurricane warnings in effect for these islands over here and Oahu. So it's something that we're going to want to keep a very close eye on. The track of this is definitely something that you're going to want to watch out for, particularly because the Big Island is going to see some pretty big impacts no matter what from what I'm seeing. But depending on how this will go, will depend on if the rest of the islands are going to get the impacts. And especially Oahu is one that I'm really paying attention to. That's kind of where your population center in Hawaii is. Not to say that the rest of the islands aren't important. They very much are in this situation. But that's kind of my main concern, because the further north this goes, the closer to the population centers on the island this will go. And that could potentially impact a lot more people and bring more impacts to those people than maybe what we were originally anticipating. But still something to pay attention to and something to keep an eye out for. And here is your intensity guidance right here. Ignore this past 5 days out. This is going to be what's happening after the system has impacted the Hawaiian Islands. The next 24 to 36 hours are what we're paying attention to. And according to the hurricane models, even the NHC is being a bit aggressive on this, given the conditions that we have with that region over there. But ultimately, what you're seeing with this is a situation where you're looking at a strong tropical storm to Category 1 hurricane strength, 75 to 80 mile per hour. Seems to be the most likely scenario if it does become a hurricane, although that could increase if the conditions continue to improve and that trough angle continues to get its act together and the system continues organizing as well. We're definitely going to be talking a lot about it tonight on the Triple P show, considering the potential impacts it could have for the islands. So stay tuned for that, and we'll keep you updated as more information comes out. But shifting over a little bit, we've talked about the Hawaiian Islands. We're going to be talking about what's going on in the Atlantic a little bit. We're going to be pivoting towards that region over there. Let's go ahead and get started. We have this the 0Z European we're going to pull up, because I know the chances have been decreasing over there, but I want to kind of see how things are going to pan out, and I kind of want to take a temperature gauge as to what's been going on as of recent. So this is what we got 24 hours out. This system's not going to be doing too much. It's going to be moving through parts of the Lesser Antilles tonight, going into tomorrow. And then as we go ahead and go to 48 hours out based on the model initialization, you're seeing a lot of the ensembles drop off over here. Although we did talk about yesterday how the European ensembles, some of them had this holding out until it got to Central America. Meanwhile, Invest 94L is still doing what it can to get its act together according to the European, but the time is starting to run out in that sector. And then as we get to 72 hours out, a lot more of the ensemble members start dropping as it moves through the high wind shear environment in the Caribbean. Invest 94L, we're not seeing too much going on over there as well. Let's go ahead and go to 4 days out. And even less so for 92 and 94L. You have another tropical wave emerging off the coast of Africa that's picking up some interest with the European, but I'm not too sure how legitimate that is at this current point in time. Taking a quick gander at this, yeah, I'm not necessarily buying too much of it, because it has the organizing and developing, some of it strengthening right off it gets off the coast of Africa. I'm not going to put my money on that, mainly because this hasn't even come off Africa just yet. So that's what we have going on over here. 6 days out. Let's go ahead and go to 8 days out to see what's going on further. But yeah, the Europeans liking this wave over here that's currently in the eastern main development region, but I'm a bit skeptical on that, to be honest with you. I'm not really buying it, mainly given what happened with Invest 92 and what's going on with Invest 94L at this current point in time. Let's go ahead and go to 10 days out. Yeah, it's showing that potential area, but we'll have to wait and see how everything progresses right here. So we'll keep an eye on it. But ultimately, let's go ahead and look at the AI run to give an idea of what's going on. Similar situation, liking the wave behind it, but 92 and 94L, not so much as of this current point. Here's the GFS right here. Similar situation with the wave behind it. We'll have to wait and see how this progresses, because a lot of the models are definitely kind of liking it a little bit more so. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Google DeepMind. Yeah, they're not showing too much. What's the GNC doing? They're showing a little bit with that wave behind, but I'm not putting too much stock into this at this current point. So that's what our ensembles are looking for. I want to go ahead and briefly look at the conditions of what's going on in the Atlantic, just to kind of get a general taste test as to what's going on there now, and then we'll shift over to our conditions for Tropical Storm Lala. To start off with, here is our water temperatures. Plenty warm for tropical development. The main problem with that is the water temperatures in the El Nino are a lot warmer now than they were previously from last year. Like, there's an El Nino going on right now that's really just ramping up and causing a lot of problems for the Atlantic in terms of tropical development. I know Colorado State University put out their latest forecast. They were looking for 11 named storms. That's up from 9 named storms from last month, which is definitely an interesting situation. But ultimately, the water temperatures are kind of what's carrying what's good for tropical development. Same thing with the ocean heat content. We'll talk about everything that's against it in terms of the wind shear and the dry air aspect of things in just a couple of minutes. But water temperatures across the Atlantic, regardless of whether these systems develop or not, have absolutely been surging. And that is definitely something that we need to keep an eye on and pay attention to. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and show you the climate reanalyzer. From what I have seen, let's go ahead and pull this up. We have, as of now, eclipsed the water temperature map and the water temperatures, I would say, of 2024. This is where we were in 2024. We were at a period of about 25-ish degrees Celsius. We're eclipsing 2024 at this current point. We are now, as of this current point, the second warmest water temperatures on record across the North Atlantic, only behind 2023, and that was a strong El Nino as well, but because we had so many strong Atlantic sea surface temperature anomalies, it was able to crush it underneath this weight. But this El Nino in 2026 is way stronger than what we saw in 2023 already, and that's why you're not seeing too much tropical development at this current point. But still, my goodness, the fact that we were looking at something close to bordering 2025 and then going into August, this just absolutely surged out of almost nowhere over the last couple of weeks. You have that situation where we're now the second warmest temperatures going on in the record right here, behind 2023. That's definitely not a accomplishment that you want to scoff away right there. And it definitely concerns me for what's going to be happening for 2027, which I will be talking about most likely in another video soon. So that's what we're looking at with our water temperatures. Here's the ocean heat content map as of what we got for you guys right here. Let's go ahead and pull this one up as well. This is the latest that we have according to this. Good OHC generally. That water temperature surge pumped a lot of ocean heat content across the Caribbean, across the Gulf region, especially the loop current, and especially across the Atlantic basin over here. So it's definitely a situation that we're going to want to keep an eye on. I would say more so for the Caribbean, paying attention to 2027 going forward, because there's still a lot of shear and dry air that's still battling through it. But we'll keep you updated and we'll continue to pay attention to it. Let's go ahead and shift over to our wind shear and our dry air aspect to kind of see how those are going to be panning out for you guys. This is what we got for you guys at this current point. This is the European run. Wind shear across the Atlantic, where 92L is, it's battling a lot of shear right now. Going to be running into the Caribbean, where you're looking at 50 plus knots of wind shear. That's not going to really most likely survive it. In terms of 94L, it's actually doing a better job in terms of looking at wind shear wise. You do have a situation where you have some weaker wind shear initially until it starts moving towards the Atlantic basin, at least from what I've seen with the hurricane models with this system. And from that point, the wind shear kind of collapses over here and gives it potentially an opening for tropical development if it still wants to do that, if it battles that dry air that's still currently doing. But ultimately, you have that situation where the Atlantic basin is still very much open for business shear-wise, not so much in the Caribbean, and that's going to be a situation that persists for quite some time. The Eastern Caribbean, interestingly, by the time we get towards late August, actually opens up quite a bit in terms of your wind shear from what we've seen previously. Before, it was just a massive wall of shear going on pretty much from the Central Caribbean, in the Northwestern Caribbean, and across the Caribbean throughout much of the main development region. Now it's started to open up a little bit, but that kind of business in terms of opening is not going to last too long, and if it does, it's going to be up and down, up and down. In terms of the main development region, wind shear, by the time we get to late August, does get a little bit better. So watch out for what's going to be happening potentially, I'd say, late August going into early September, because when you start seeing that in terms of the shear, you start to pay attention to it a little bit more when you're in my book right here. So let's go ahead and see how the dry air correlates. Let's look at that, see how things pan out with the dry air aspect. Here's the dry air going on. Still a lot of dry air in the northern main development region and in the Caribbean Sea. 92L is going to be running into that. 94L has been battling a lot of dry air aspect of it right here, but the moisture pocket still kind of holds for a little while as it moves towards the Atlantic Basin. And by the time it does get over there, according to the hurricane runs, you do see a situation where there's a little bit more mixable dry air. But the question is it even going to be an area of interest by the time it gets over there? Is it going to produce enough convection for it to even take advantage of that? And let's just say that for right now, I don't really see that happening too much, but you could never know. Expect the unexpected from this. But ultimately, in terms of your dry air, this is kind of the main thing that's remained pretty stubborn across much of the Atlantic Basin. Even going into late August, you do see an increase of dry air again in the main development region. Less so in the Caribbean and less so in the Atlantic Basin. I want to check what our precipitable water anomalies are like right here. Yeah, there's still a lot of dryness going on across much of the region, more so than what we would previously expect in more so an average setting. There is more Sahara air layer moving into Europe by the time we get to late August, but there's still a lot of dry air that you're going to need to battle in the Atlantic at this current point in time. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and shift over to our conditions going on in Hawaii with Tropical Storm Lala. So to start off, let's go ahead and go to the Central Pacific for you guys right here. Let's go ahead and pull up our wind shear map. Definitely an interesting situation that we have going on. You do see some wind shear kind of maybe weakening it, not necessarily weakening it, but kind of slowing down in terms of intensity. But it's a bit further up to the north right here, and there is emerging at an angle, kind of what the outflow is doing. I was watching it earlier with the DAPIA website in terms of the satellite. But this area right here, especially further to the west near Hawaii, definitely is something I'm going to be paying attention to more so, because there is some wind shear that the system is going to potentially battle a little bit north to the north right here until it approaches the Hawaiian Islands. From this point on, the angle changes completely. The angle starts shifting a bit more towards the northeast, and that could potentially enhance some last-minute intensification. And I think this is what the NHC was watching right here. This could potentially enhance some last-minute intensification before it impacts the Big Island and then moves through the Hawaiian Islands. Expected to make landfall over there. And then from that point, this wind shear becomes less of a blessing and more of a curse. Starts disorganizing it and weakening it a little bit. But after it leaves the Hawaiian Islands, look at this. The conditions get a lot better for tropical development, especially down the line. That is something you're going to want to watch out for, but especially in the last few hours before this impacts the Hawaiian Islands, that is when you're going to want to pay attention to it, especially with how things are going to be panning out. Let's go ahead and show you the dry air aspect of things. Dry air is a bit of a similar story. Yes, there is some dry air going on across parts of the system right here and around a lot of those areas, but ultimately the system is still producing very deep convection, producing a lot of convection as a matter of fact, and it's kind of keeping that dry air at bay. That coupled with lessening wind shear and the way it's going to be angled moving as it moves towards the big island over there, you're going to have a situation where as long as this keeps pumping convection and keeps organizing and keeps the dry air out, it's not going to have too big of a problem moving forward in terms of potential intensification. That's why you're going to want to pay close attention to this if you're in the Hawaiian Islands. That's why I'm taking this pretty seriously, ladies and gentlemen. So that's kind of your situation that we have. We're looking at favorable conditions as this system starts approaching Hawaii over there, and it's something we're going to want to watch out for, especially tonight on the Triple P show. Be sure you do not miss that. We're going to be watching that in the Atlantic and what's going on over there. So be sure you stay tuned, and we will keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're closing the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. Feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.